Title: Betrayal in Seattle. The rain drizzled softly against the glass windows of a high-rise apartment in downtown Seattle. Olivia sat on the couch, scrolling mindlessly through her phone, unaware that her perfect world was about to shatter. Her husband, Jason, had been acting distant for the past few weeks, but she chalked it up to work stress. After all, being a corporate lawyer in a city like Seattle wasn't easy. That night, Jason came home late again. His usual excuse: late meeting. Olivia wanted to believe him, but something felt off. The way he avoided eye contact, the way he jumped at every notification on his phone, it gnawed at her. Desperate for answers, she confided in her sister, Emily, the one person she trusted the most. "I think Jason might be cheating on me," Olivia admitted one evening, swirling her wine glass nervously. Emily's eyes widened, and she reached out to squeeze Olivia's hand. "Liv, don't let your mind go there. Jason loves you. You guys are solid." But doubts festered in the corners of Olivia's mind. And then, by pure chance, the truth slipped through the cracks. It was a Saturday afternoon when Olivia decided to surprise Jason at work. She picked up his favorite coffee and a sandwich, hoping to bring him a bit of comfort in his supposedly stressful week. As she walked into his office building, a familiar figure caught her eye: Emily, dressed in a sleek black dress, laughing softly as she stepped into the elevator. Olivia's stomach twisted. Her hands trembled as she followed, waiting a few minutes before pressing the same floor number. When she reached Jason's office, she hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't have to knock. His office door was slightly ajar. And through that gap, she saw them, Jason's hands on Emily's waist, Emily leaning into his touch, their lips meeting in a kiss that was far too intimate to be explained away. The coffee slipped from Olivia's grip, crashing onto the marble floor, the sound echoing through the hall. Jason and Emily whipped their heads around, horror painting their faces. "Olivia," Jason began, stepping toward her, but she took a step back, her breath shallow. "How long?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Liv, Emily tried, but Olivia cut her off with a sharp glare. "How long?" she repeated, her voice cracking. Jason exhaled heavily, running a hand through his hair. "A few months." The weight of betrayal crushed her, stealing the air from her lungs. Emily, her sister. Jason, her husband. The two people she trusted most had ripped her world apart. Without another word, Olivia turned on her heel and walked away, ignoring Jason's desperate pleas. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. But as she stepped into the rainy streets of Seattle, tears blurred her vision, mixing with the raindrops that cascaded down her face. She had lost a husband. She had lost a sister. But she would not lose herself. Aftermath. Weeks turned into months, and Olivia rebuilt her life piece by piece. She moved into a new apartment, started therapy, and found solace in painting, a passion she had long neglected. Slowly, the wounds began to heal. Jason tried to reach out several times, but Olivia ignored his messages. He and Emily, on the other hand, didn't last. The guilt and tension between them eroded whatever fantasy they had built, and within 6 months, they parted ways. Emily attempted to apologize, showing up at Olivia's door one evening, tearful and remorseful. But Olivia didn't let her in. "Some betrayals don't deserve forgiveness," she said softly before closing the door. As the seasons changed, Olivia felt lighter, stronger. She had lost the people she once loved, but in the process, she had found herself. And that, she realized, was worth more than anything she had left behind. New beginnings. Years passed, and Olivia's life took a completely new direction. Her paintings gained recognition, and soon, she was hosting her first personal exhibition in one of Seattle's most prestigious galleries. She had built a new life, one filled with art, travel, and self-discovery. On the night of her exhibition, as she stood in the middle of the gallery, surrounded by guests admiring her work, she felt a sense of pride. She had come so far. Then, from the corner of her eye, she noticed him, Jason. He stood at a distance, his expression unreadable, watching her. For a moment, their eyes met, but Olivia didn't feel anger or sadness. Just peace. Jason took a hesitant step forward, as if considering approaching her, but Olivia simply gave him a small nod before turning back to greet a guest. She had nothing left to say to him. Later that night, as she left the gallery, another man walked beside her, a photographer she had met during her travels. Someone who had seen her pain but never asked for explanations. A new beginning. Meanwhile, Jason walked away into the city's night, knowing he had lost something irreplaceable. And Emily, living in another city, could only wonder if she had made the worst mistake of her life. But just as Olivia thought she had finally put everything behind her, a knock on her door changed everything. She opened it to find Emily, standing there with a haunted look in her eyes. "Olivia, I need your help," Emily whispered, her voice trembling. "It's Jason. He's missing." A chill ran down Olivia's spine. "What do you mean, missing?" "No one has seen or heard from him in weeks. He left me a message saying he regretted everything, and now, I don't know where he is." Emily hesitated before pulling something from her pocket, a crumpled envelope. Olivia unfolded the note inside. It was Jason's handwriting. "I know the truth now. I shouldn't have betrayed you. But it's too late. They're coming for me. I'm sorry." "They?" Olivia whispered. Then, before Emily could answer, Olivia's phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice spoke. "Stay out of this, Olivia, or you'll be next." Olivia's breath caught in her throat. Emily's face drained of color. What did Jason get himself into? Olivia murmured. Emily's hands shook. "Leave. I don't think this was just an affair. I think Jason was hiding something. Something dangerous." Olivia had spent years healing, moving on, but now, she realized, her past wasn't done with her yet. And this time it might not let her go. Betrayal in Seattle, the aftershock. The air in Olivia's apartment grew thick with tension as she stood at the door, the words from Emily echoing in her mind. Jason's message. The cryptic warning. "Stay out of this, Olivia, or you'll be next." The pulse in her neck beat louder, more frantic as she took the envelope from Emily's trembling hands. The letter inside was a chilling confession, but it raised more questions than it answered. Emily stepped inside, her face pale. "Liv, what do we do?" I never imagined Jason could be involved in something like this." Olivia's gaze flickered to the crumpled letter again. Her mind raced. Jason had always been a man of secrets, but this was different. This wasn't just a lover's betrayal. It was something far darker. "They're coming for me." Jason's words repeated in her head like a drumbeat. "Who?" Olivia whispered aloud, but Emily didn't have the answer. The phone call earlier had been unsettling. The distorted voice, the warning. Whoever this was, they knew who she was, and they knew about Jason's betrayal. But what did it all mean? "We need to figure out who Jason got mixed up with," Olivia said, her voice steadying as the shock began to wear off. "We need answers." Emily nodded, the anxiety still visible in her eyes. "But how? Jason's been gone for weeks." Olivia pulled out her phone, tapping into her contacts. "I have a few people who might know something. I'm going to start looking into this. We need to find Jason." Over the next few days, Olivia dug deeper into Jason's life, going through his emails, texts, and business dealings, anything that might lead her to answers. What she uncovered left her shaken to the core. Jason had been involved with a shady underground organization, an entity that operated on the fringes of the law. They were known for manipulating high-profile individuals, using leverage, secrets, and sometimes violence to get what they wanted. Jason had been their inside man, a mole in a corporate world he had once proudly represented. The affair with Emily, Olivia realized, had been the final betrayal. But it was not just personal. Jason's ties to this organization went much deeper than she had imagined. One late night, Olivia and Emily met again, this time in a small cafe on the outskirts of Seattle. Emily's hands were still trembling, her eyes shadowed with worry. "I found something," Olivia said quietly, sliding a stack of documents across the table. "Jason's involvement. It's deeper than I thought. He's in debt to them, and now they want him to pay." Emily's face blanched as she scanned the papers. "Olivia, what are we going to do? We find him. We can't wait for him to come back. We need to act now." That's when the phone call came. Olivia's heart skipped as she saw the unknown number flashing on the screen. Olivia. The voice on the other end was chillingly calm, almost cold. You don't know who you're dealing with. Stay out of this, or you'll regret it. Olivia's grip tightened on the phone. Who is this? A long pause. Then, you're in deeper than you realize. Jason didn't just betray you. He crossed the wrong people. And now so have you. If you value your life, I suggest you forget everything you know. The line went dead. Olivia sat frozen, the weight of the threat pressing down on her chest. Emily was staring at her, wide-eyed. Liv, what do we do now? Olivia's mind was spinning, but one thing was clear. There was no turning back now. Jason's disappearance was not just a personal tragedy. It was the beginning of something far more dangerous. And Olivia was going to find the truth, no matter the cost. Dark alliances. The search for Jason led Olivia and Emily down a path they had never expected. Their inquiries brought them into contact with people who had their own hidden agendas, each with a vested interest in the truth about Jason's involvement in the underground syndicate. Some were willing to help, others threatened them with every word. But Olivia's determination grew stronger with each piece of the puzzle that fell into place. Jason had not disappeared by choice. He had been taken, and the organization that had manipulated him had no intention of letting him go without a price. One night, after a tip from an anonymous source, Olivia found herself standing outside a dimly lit building on the edge of the city, a place she never would have associated with Jason. As she entered, she was greeted by a man with cold, calculating eyes. I assume you're here for the same reason as the others, the man said, his voice smooth, almost rehearsed. Looking for Jason? Olivia nodded, trying to hide the fear creeping into her heart. Where is he? The man's lips curled into a thin smile. Jason is in a place where the past no longer matters. But if you want him, you'll have to prove your worth more than a piece of his betrayal. This game you're playing? It's bigger than you think. The final choice. As Olivia and Emily were drawn deeper into the dangerous world that Jason had been a part of, the stakes grew higher. Secrets, lies, and dangerous games of power and control unfolded before them. The truth about Jason's betrayal was just the beginning of a much darker story, one that threatened to consume them both. And Olivia found herself standing at a crossroads. She had once lost everything: her husband, her sister, her trust in the world. But now, she realized she could not run from this. She had a choice: to walk away or to confront the darkness that had haunted her for so long. The same darkness that had swallowed Jason whole. But would she be able to survive it? Or would this final chapter tear her apart once and for all? One thing was certain: the past was not done with her yet. The descent. As Olivia stood in the cold, dim-lit room, the weight of the man's words pressed against her chest. She was no longer the woman she had once been, broken by betrayal and disillusionment. No, this was someone new, forged in the fire of grief and self-discovery. But even as she steadied her breath, she knew one thing. The stakes were far higher than she had anticipated. The man in front of her, an enforcer for the shadowy syndicate Jason had fallen into, wasn't just going to hand over answers. Olivia had learned the hard way that in this world, nothing was given freely. You want him back, the man said, his voice like gravel. Then you'll have to prove you're more than just a heartbroken wife. This is not a game of emotions anymore. It's survival. Emily, standing a few paces behind her, looked terrified but determined. She had followed Olivia into this mess, her love for her sister outweighing her own fears. She glanced nervously at Olivia before speaking. What do we have to do? Whatever it takes, we're ready. The man studied them for a moment, his eyes cold and calculating. There's a place where Jason is being held, but it's not easy to get to. You'll need to make allies, gain trust, and most importantly, understand what you're getting into. This isn't something you walk away from. Olivia felt a shiver of fear run down her spine, but she pushed it away. She wasn't going to turn back now. Not after everything. We'll do whatever it takes, Olivia said, her voice low but firm. The man nodded, as though this was the answer he had been waiting for. There's a contact. Her name's Ivy. She's the only one who can get you close to Jason. But she's dangerous. Approach her carefully. If you can win her trust, she'll help you. He slid a small business card across the table, and Olivia snatched it up, her mind racing. She had no idea who this Ivy was, but she wasn't about to back down now. This was her fight. Ivy. The rain fell harder as Olivia and Emily ventured further into the city, moving into darker parts of town, where danger seemed to linger in every shadow. The address on the card led them to a nondescript building at the end of an alley, the kind of place where no one asked questions. They hesitated before knocking, unsure of what to expect. Ivy was no one's idea of an ally at first glance. Tall, lean, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to pierce right through you, she exuded an air of authority that was both unsettling and magnetic. She stood with her arms crossed, waiting for them as though she had known they would come. "You must be Olivia," Ivy said, her voice soft but carrying an edge that sent a chill down Olivia's spine. "Jason's wife. You think you're ready to play this game?" Olivia swallowed hard, steeling herself. "I need to find him. He's in trouble, and I'm not leaving without him." Ivy's lips curled into a smirk. "You've been through a lot, haven't you? Betrayed by your husband, and now you're running headfirst into a world you barely understand. But you're not the first to think they can save someone like him." "We're not leaving him behind," Emily interjected, her voice tinged with desperation. Ivy's gaze flicked toward her for the briefest moment, then back to Olivia. "Fine, but understand this, you're not just getting Jason back. You're stepping into a war zone. If you want him, you'll have to fight for him. And you might not like what you find when you get there." Olivia nodded, knowing full well the dangers ahead. She had nothing left to lose. Into the heart of darkness. With Ivy's help, they made their way into the heart of the syndicate's operations, navigating through layers of deception, betrayal, and violence. Olivia's every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she pressed on, her resolve hardened by the need to save Jason, even if it meant confronting the dark truths about him. They reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Seattle, where Jason had been held. Ivy's presence was like a shield, allowing them to slip past the guards unnoticed. As they moved deeper into the building, the air grew heavier, thick with the smell of metal and sweat. Then they found him. Jason was chained to a wall in a dimly lit room, his face gaunt, eyes hollow. The man she had once known, her husband, was a shell of himself, broken by the very world he had betrayed her for. Olivia's heart twisted as she stepped toward him, her breath catching in her throat. "Jason," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. His head jerked up at the sound of her voice, his eyes widening with a mix of disbelief and relief. "Liv, you shouldn't have come," he rasped, his voice hoarse. "It's too dangerous." "I'm not leaving you," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling inside her. "We're getting you out of here." Jason looked at her with a mixture of guilt and pain. "You don't understand. You've gotten too close, they'll come for you too. They won't stop." Olivia shook her head, refusing to accept his words. "I'm not leaving without you." But as she reached for the chains to release him, the door to the room slammed open. Armed men poured in, their guns trained on Olivia, Emily, and Ivy. "You should have stayed out of this," a familiar voice called from the doorway. It was the enforcer, the man who had warned her earlier. He stepped forward, his expression cold and unforgiving. "But now, you've crossed a line, and there's no going back." Olivia's heart pounded in her chest. She had done everything she could to save Jason, to save herself, but now they were all trapped in a web of lies and violence from which there was no escape. The question now was, would they survive long enough to uncover the truth behind Jason's betrayal? And would Olivia, who had fought so hard to rebuild her life, be forced to face the ultimate test of survival? The final reckoning. Jason's face went pale as he saw the men approaching, but Olivia didn't flinch. She had come this far. She wasn't about to back down now. As the enforcer advanced, a gunshot rang out, sharp and jarring. Everything froze. A new player had entered the game. From the shadows emerged a figure, cloaked in darkness, but unmistakable. Ivy had made her move. The final reckoning had arrived. The reckoning. The gunshot echoed through the warehouse, the sharp sound slicing the tense silence like a blade. Time seemed to freeze as the enforcer's body jerked backward, his hand releasing his weapon, and he collapsed to the floor with a sickening thud. The other men froze in confusion, eyes darting between Olivia, Ivy, and the fallen enforcer. Ivy stood in the doorway, her gun still raised, eyes calculating, cold as ice. Her expression betrayed nothing, just the sharp edge of a woman used to making decisions in the blink of an eye. "I told you this was bigger than you thought," Ivy said calmly, lowering her weapon. Her eyes flicked to Olivia, then back to the guards. "Now, we're all in this together, whether you like it or not." Olivia's heart was racing, but she steadied her breath. This was the moment of truth, the moment that would determine if they could escape or if they were all doomed to be swallowed by the darkness Jason had led them into. "Get him out of here," Ivy snapped, her voice authoritative as she motioned to Jason, still chained to the wall. Olivia rushed to him, her hands shaking as she worked to free him from his restraints. Jason's eyes were wide, his voice a rasping whisper. "You shouldn't be here, Liv. You don't understand. This is bigger than both of us. You have no idea what we're up against." "We don't have time for this, Jason," Olivia said sharply. "We're leaving now." But before she could undo the last chain, the silence was broken again, this time by a series of footsteps coming from behind them. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was another man, but this time it wasn't just a guard. It was someone Olivia recognized, a face that sent a chill down her spine. "Jason, I see you've brought your wife," the man said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. He was tall, his features sharp, and his smile unnerving. "I'd almost forgotten how personal this all became." Olivia's stomach twisted as recognition set in. It was Marcus, the man Jason had once worked with closely, the one Olivia had always suspected was involved in the darker dealings that Jason had gotten himself tangled in. He wasn't just part of the syndicate. He was the one who ran it from the shadows. "You!" Olivia's voice barely escaped her throat, fear mixing with disbelief. "You're the one pulling the strings?" Marcus's smile grew wider, almost smug. "Not just me, but I'm one of the few who understood what Jason was truly worth to us. You see, his betrayal wasn't just about a little affair. It was always about loyalty, Liv, about power, about control. And you were a part of the game, whether you knew it or not." Olivia's hands clenched into fists. "You're sick. All of this. All this manipulation. It's for nothing." Jason's face twisted in pain as he finally spoke. "Olivia, you don't understand. I didn't have a choice." Marcus chuckled darkly. "Choices? Oh, Jason had plenty of choices. He just chose the wrong side. Now we're all here, trapped in this tangled mess of secrets and lies. And the only way out, Olivia, is to do what you know you have to do." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. "What are you talking about?" Marcus took a step closer, his voice lowering, a dangerous glint in his eyes. "I know you've been looking for answers. I know you've been searching for the truth. But the truth, Liv, is that you can't save him. Not anymore." Before Olivia could respond, Jason's eyes flickered with something dark, a flash of regret, of pain that was deeper than anything she'd seen in him before. He looked at Olivia, his voice barely audible. "I am sorry." Then, with a sudden, shocking movement, Jason pushed Olivia aside. Everything happened in an instant. Jason's body lunged toward Marcus, desperation fueling his every move. The gunshot was deafening, ringing through the room as Jason collapsed to the floor, his chest slick with blood. Olivia screamed, rushing to his side, her heart shattering as she cradled his limp body in her arms. "No, Jason, no," she cried, her tears mixing with the blood staining his clothes. Jason's eyes fluttered open one last time, his lips forming a silent apology, and then he was gone. The room spun as Marcus watched, an expression of satisfaction on his face. Ivy stood behind him, her expression unreadable, a faint trace of something resembling regret flickering in her eyes. But it was fleeting. "You should have stayed out of it," Marcus said coldly, his voice devoid of any remorse. "He was never yours to save. And now, neither are you." Olivia sat there, paralyzed, her world crumbling around her. She had fought so hard to save Jason, to understand the truth. But in the end, the truth had cost her everything. As the reality of the situation sank in, Ivy stepped forward, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "It's over, Liv. It's too late." But Olivia wasn't listening. She was lost in the numbness that had taken over her mind, staring at the man she had once loved, now a cold shell in her arms. The anger, the grief, the betrayal, they all swirled inside her, consuming her from the inside out. The silence was deafening. The only sound was the soft drip of blood from Jason's body, mingling with the distant hum of the city outside. In that moment, Olivia realized the terrible truth. She had lost not just a husband, but the man she had loved in a way she never fully understood. And in trying to save him, she had lost herself as well. Epilogue: a broken echo. Weeks passed, and the city of Seattle went on, indifferent to the tragedy that had unfolded in its shadow. The warehouse was abandoned, the bloodstains still marking the place where Jason had fallen. Olivia never spoke of that night again. She left the city, moving far away, where the memories of Jason, of her sister, of everything she had lost, would not haunt her so fiercely. But even in the distance, the ache in her heart never faded. It was a wound too deep to heal, a scar that would remain, hidden but always there. She never saw Marcus or Ivy again, but the shadow of their betrayal lingered, always present in the corners of her mind. And so, Olivia's life moved forward, not with peace or redemption, but with a quiet, unrelenting ache that would never quite fade. Some battles, she realized, were not meant to be won, and some losses, no matter how painful, would shape the rest of her life. The past had taken everything from her, and now, all she had left was the silence.